Kidnappers thought she was easy prey until the human intervened. The warning signs. Marcus Chen had been working the graveyard shift on orbital station Sigma 7 for 3 years, and in that time, he'd learned to trust his instincts. The massive structure floated at the edge of Coalition space, a waypoint for dozens of species traveling between the inner and outer colonies. As a maintenance engineer, Marcus knew every pipe, circuit, and ventilation shaft in the sprawling facility. He also knew when something didn't belong. The first sign of trouble came through his diagnostic scanner at 300 hours station time. A power fluctuation in section Delta 4, barely noticeable but consistent. Not enough to trigger automatic alerts, but enough to make Marcus frown at his readout. He'd seen similar patterns before, usually when someone was running unauthorized equipment off the main grid. Marcus grabbed his toolkit and headed toward the anomaly, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The station's night cycle meant most inhabitants were asleep, leaving the halls bathed in dim emergency lighting. He liked it this way, quiet, peaceful, just him and the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. As he rounded a corner near the commercial district, movement caught his eye. A small figure huddled in an alcove between two closed shops, knees drawn up to their chest. Marcus slowed his approach, recognizing the distinctive lavender skin and feathered hair of a Zelathi child. The girl couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 standard years old. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, crouching down to appear less intimidating. His 6-foot frame often scared younger aliens. "Are you lost?" The child looked up, revealing large amber eyes filled with tears. She wore expensive clothing, a shimmer silk dress that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month, but it was torn at the hem and stained with something dark. "I want my mother," she whispered in accented Coalition standard. Marcus's protective instincts flared. A child this young shouldn't be alone at this hour, especially not in this state. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Kira," she replied, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Okay, Kira. I'm Marcus. I work here on the station. How about we find your mom together?" Before Kira could respond, heavy footsteps approached from behind. Marcus turned to see 2 Garathians, massive gray-skinned aliens with 4 arms and faces that looked like they'd been carved from granite. They wore matching black uniforms with no visible insignia. "There you are, little one," the larger Garathian said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Your father has been worried sick." Kira shrank back, pressing herself against the wall. The movement was subtle, but Marcus noticed. He also noticed how her breathing quickened and her feathers, a Zelathi sign of distress, stood on end. "And you are?" Marcus asked, standing slowly and positioning himself between Kira and the newcomers. "Private security," the second Garathian said, producing a holographic badge that flickered too quickly for Marcus to read properly. "The child's father hired us to retrieve her. She has a tendency to wander." Marcus had encountered enough legitimate security personnel to recognize the real thing. These 2 didn't move right. Their stance was too aggressive, their eyes too cold. And that badge, genuine security credentials, didn't flicker like cheap forgeries. "I see," Marcus said, keeping his tone neutral. "Well, since she's a minor, I'll need to verify that with station security. Standard protocol for unaccompanied children." The Garathians exchanged glances. "That won't be necessary," the first one said, taking a step forward. "We'll handle this privately." Marcus's hand moved casually to his tool belt, fingers finding the emergency beacon he always carried. "Actually, it is necessary. Station Regulations, Section 15, Subsection 3. All custody transfers involving minors must be documented by station security." He was making up the regulation, but he'd learned that most people didn't know station rules well enough to challenge him. The Garathians clearly fell into that category, their confusion buying him precious seconds. "Listen, human," the larger one growled, reaching for something at his hip. "This doesn't concern you." Marcus pressed the emergency beacon, sending a silent alert to station security with his location. "Everything on this station concerns me when I'm on duty. Now we can do this the easy way, or..." The Garathian lunged forward with surprising speed for his size. Marcus reacted instinctively, grabbing his plasma cutter from his tool belt and activating it in one smooth motion. The brilliant blue beam sliced through the air, forcing the alien to pull back or lose a hand. "Run, Kira," Marcus shouted. The girl didn't need to be told twice. She darted between the surprised Garathians and sprinted down the corridor, her small feet pattering against the metal floor. The second Garathian moved to pursue her, but Marcus stepped into his path, plasma cutter held steady. "You just made a big mistake, human," the first Garathian snarled. "Wouldn't be my first," Marcus replied, backing slowly down the corridor while keeping both aliens in sight. "But letting you take that scared little girl, that would be a mistake I couldn't live with." The standoff lasted only moments before the sound of approaching security filled the corridor. The Garathians looked at each other, then back at Marcus. Without a word, they turned and disappeared into the shadows of a maintenance tunnel, moving with practiced ease that told Marcus they knew the station's layout better than casual visitors. Should station security arrived seconds later, a mixed team of humans and various alien species, led by Lieutenant Sarah Kim, whom Marcus had shared more than a few late-night conversations with over the years. "Marcus, what's going on?" Sarah asked, her hand resting on her stun weapon. "Two Garathians tried to take a Zalathi child, said they were private security, but something was off. The girl was terrified of them." Marcus powered down his plasma cutter but kept it in hand. "She ran that way. We need to find her before they do." Sarah nodded, already directing her team to spread out. Description: lavender skin, purple feathers, wearing a torn shimmer silk dress, said her name was Kira. Marcus fell into step beside Sarah as they searched. The Garathians went into the maintenance tunnels. They knew exactly where they were going. Sarah's expression darkened. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in the lower levels, nothing concrete, but..." She activated her communicator. "Control, this is Lieutenant Kim. Lock down all maintenance access points in sections Delta through Gamma. We have a possible child endangerment situation." They found Kira 20 minutes later, hiding in a supply closet near the medical bay. The child was shaking, her feathers completely raised in a defensive display. It took gentle coaxing from both Marcus and Sarah to convince her to come out. "They're not my father's friends," Kira said once they'd brought her to the security office and wrapped her in a thermal blanket. "My father is dead. Those men took me from my mother's ship 3 days ago." Marcus felt his jaw clench. His instincts had been right, but he wished they hadn't been. "Do you know where your mother is?" "They said she thinks I'm dead," Kira whispered. "They showed her a body, said no one would look for me." Sarah was already pulling up missing persons reports on her terminal. Kira Sinara reported killed in a pirate attack on the merchant vessel Stellar Dream 3 days ago. She looked up, her face grim. But the body was never recovered. Just genetic material at the scene. "Faked death," Marcus said. "Classic trafficking setup. Make everyone think the kid's dead, no one searches for them." "But why?" Sarah asked. "Zalathi aren't typically targeted for trafficking." Kira spoke up, her small voice carrying surprising strength. "They said I was special, that someone paid a lot of money for a Zalathi child with my gift." "What gift?" Marcus asked gently. Kira closed her eyes, and suddenly Marcus's diagnostic scanner began beeping wildly. Every piece of electronic equipment in the room flickered and hummed. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal. "Electromagnetic manipulation," Sarah breathed. "That's incredibly rare, even among Zalathi." Marcus knelt beside Kira's chair. "That's why they want you. Someone wants to use your ability for something bad, don't they?" The child nodded, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. "They said I would make them very rich, that I would learn to do what they wanted or they would hurt me." Marcus stood, his decision made. "That's not going to happen. Sarah, we need to find those Garathians and whoever they're working with. This isn't just about one kid. If they're this organized, there are probably others." Sarah was already typing commands into her terminal. "I'm pulling all surveillance from the last week, focusing on the maintenance tunnels. If they've been using them to move around undetected." She paused, her eyes widening. "Marcus, look at this." On the screen, grainy security footage showed the same two Garathians leading different children through the maintenance tunnels over the past several days. Each child was a different species, but all were young, all were clearly distressed, and all had been reported as missing or dead in recent weeks. "How many?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "At least a dozen in the last week alone." Sarah's fingers flew over her keyboard. All listed as casualties of various accidents or attacks. All bodies supposedly unrecoverable. Marcus felt sick. Orbital Station Sigma-7 was supposed to be a safe haven, a place where different species could meet and trade in peace. Instead, someone had turned it into a hunting ground for the galaxy's most vulnerable. "We need to stop this," he said. Sarah nodded, her expression hardening with determination. "We will. But Marcus, if this is as big as it looks, we're going to need help. And we need to be careful. Someone on this station is helping them. Someone with access to security systems and shipping manifests." Marcus looked down at Kira, who had fallen asleep in the chair, exhausted from her ordeal. Even in sleep, her feathers twitched with residual fear. He thought about all the other children who might be hidden somewhere on the station, waiting for rescue that might never come. "Then we'd better get started," he said, "because I'm not letting another child disappear on my watch." As if in response to his words, the power fluctuation alert appeared on his scanner again, the same one that had started his shift. But now he understood what it meant. Somewhere on this station, in some hidden compartment shielded from regular scans, someone was holding children prisoner, and the power drain was from whatever was keeping them contained. Marcus Chen had come to Sigma-7 to fix machines and keep the station running. But tonight, he discovered a different kind of broken system, one that traded in innocent lives. And he was going to fix that too, no matter what it took. The hidden network, the medical bay of orbital station Sigma-7, operated around the clock, but Dr. Elena Vasquez preferred the quiet hours between shifts when she could catch up on paperwork. Without interruption, she was reviewing patient files when Marcus Chen walked in with Lieutenant Kim, both wearing expressions that promised her quiet evening was about to end. "Dr. Vasquez," Sarah began, "we need your help with something sensitive." Elena sat down, her datapad noting the tension in their shoulders. "What kind of sensitive?" Marcus stepped forward. "Have you noticed anything unusual in your patient records lately? Specifically with children?" Elena frowned, pulling up her terminal. "Define unusual. I treat dozens of children every week from various species." "Missing children," Sarah clarified, "or children who were supposedly killed in accidents but whose bodies were never recovered." Something cold settled in Elena's stomach. She had noticed patterns. Too many young patients coming in with suspicious injuries, parents who seemed oddly nervous, children who disappeared from follow-up appointments. She'd filed reports, but nothing had come of them. "There've been irregularities," Elena admitted, her fingers moving across the holographic interface. "In the last month alone, I've had 7 cases of children presenting with signs of restraint, injuries, ligature marks, bruising consistent with forced confinement. The parents always had explanations, but you didn't believe them," Marcus finished. "No, I didn't." Elena pulled up the files, displaying them on the main screen. "Look at the pattern. All different species, all between 5 and 12, standard years, all from families in financial distress." Sarah leaned in, studying the data. "Someone's targeting vulnerable families, ones who can't afford proper security or investigations if something goes wrong." Elena stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the station's central hub. 3 weeks ago, a Tyrellian woman brought her son in. He had what looked like electrical burn marks on his wrists. She claimed it was from playing with exposed wiring, but the pattern was too uniform, too deliberate. She turned back to face them. "When I tried to follow up, I was told they'd left the station, but I checked the departure logs. No Tyrellian family left that day." Marcus exchanged glances with Sarah. "We've found evidence of a child trafficking ring operating on the station. They're using the maintenance tunnels to move victims and faking deaths to avoid detection. Elena felt her hands clench into fists. As a doctor, she'd sworn to do no harm, but the thought of someone hurting children under her watch made her want to break that oath. How can I help? We need medical records, biological samples, anything that might help us identify victims or locate where they're being held, Sarah said. And we need someone with medical knowledge when we find them. These kids might need immediate treatment. Elena was already gathering supplies into a field kit. I've been documenting everything suspicious for months. I have DNA samples, photographs of injuries, even some recorded conversations with parents who seemed coached. She paused, looking at them seriously. But if we're doing this, we need to be smart. Whoever's running this operation has connections. Some of my reports went all the way to the station administrator's office and vanished. Marcus's jaw tightened. You think Administrator Kellerman is involved? I think someone in his office is, Elena replied. Every time I pushed for investigations, I get a call from administrative telling me to focus on my actual patients and leave security matters to security. Sarah pulled out a secure data pad. Then we keep this off official channels. Marcus, you know the maintenance systems better than anyone. Elena, you have the medical expertise. I'll handle security protocols and try to identify other trustworthy personnel. Elena finished packing her kit and grabbed a portable scanner. There's something else. The electrical burns on that Tyrellian boy. They weren't random. They were consistent with neural inhibitor collars, devices used to control individuals with psychic or energy manipulation abilities. Like Kira's electromagnetic gift, Marcus said grimly. Exactly. Someone's not just taking children. They're specifically targeting those with rare abilities. Elena pulled up another file. I went back through 5 years of records. Every missing child case that fits the pattern had some form of special ability noted in their medical files. The implications were staggering. This wasn't random kidnapping. It was selective harvesting of gifted children for purposes Elena didn't want to imagine. We need to find where they're keeping them, Marcus said, studying his station schematic. The power fluctuations I've been tracking. Elena, what kind of power would you need to run multiple neural inhibitor collars? Elena did quick calculations on her data pad. For a dozen children, you'd need at least a level 3 generator, isolated from main power to avoid detection. The electromagnetic signature would be masked if you hit it near the station's primary fusion reactor. Marcus finished, his eyes lighting up with understanding. The background radiation would hide the signal. And there's a whole section of abandoned storage units near the reactor that were sealed off after a coolant leak 5 years ago. Sarah was already checking security logs. That area's been marked as hazardous for years. No regular patrols, no maintenance scheduled. Perfect place to hide something. It's also a death trap if something goes wrong, Elena added. The radiation levels alone could cause serious health issues with prolonged exposure. Marcus stood, determination etched on his face. Then we need to move fast. Every minute those kids spend there is doing damage. Elena's communicator buzzed. She glanced at it and froze. It's a medical emergency alert. A young Altarian just came in unconscious with severe neural trauma. Could be one of ours? Sarah asked. Only one way to find out. Elena headed for the door. You two start planning the raid. I'll see what I can learn from this patient. The emergency ward was controlled chaos when Elena arrived. The Altarian child, no more than 6 years old, lay on the bio bed, her crystalline skin flickering, with distress patterns. Elena recognized the symptoms immediately. Neural inhibitor withdrawal. What happened? She asked the nurse on duty. Found collapsed in corridor G7. No identification, no parents came forward. She keeps saying something in Altarian, but the translator can't parse it. Elena leaned close to the child, adjusting her translator to pick up regional dialects. The girl's eyes fluttered open, fixing on Elena with desperate intensity. The shadow place, she whispered in broken coalition standard. Others still there. The angry men said we were products, said we'd learn to obey or be recycled. Elena's blood ran cold. She activated her secure communicator. Marcus, Sarah, get here now. We have a witness. While waiting for them, Elena ran comprehensive scans. The child, who managed to tell her name was Zara, showed signs of prolonged captivity, malnutrition, and repeated neural inhibitor use. But she'd also been injected with something else, something Elena didn't recognize. Marcus and Sarah arrived within minutes, and Elena quickly updated them. Zara, despite her weakened state, tried to sit up when she saw them. "You're police?" she asked Sarah hopefully. "I'm here to help," Sarah said gently. "Can you tell us where the shadow place is?" Zara shook her head. "Dark. Always dark. But I heard things. Water moving above us. Metal groaning like the station's belly hurting." Marcus pulled up his schematic. "Lower levels, near the water reclamation systems. That narrows it down." "There's more," Zara continued, her voice growing weaker. "They said tomorrow night, big ship coming, taking us all away. Said we'd never see stars again." Elena checked her chronometer. It was already past midnight. They had less than 24 hours. "How did you escape?" Sarah asked. The collar broke. "My gift came back." Zara held up her hand, and it briefly turned translucent, phasing through the bedrail. "I walked through the walls, but I got sick. The medicine they gave us." Elena checked her scan results again, and her worst fears were confirmed. "They're drugging them with compound X47. It amplifies their abilities but makes them dependent. Without regular doses, the withdrawal can be fatal." "Can you synthesize?" "An antidote?" Marcus asked. "Maybe, but I'd need samples of the original compound." Elena looked at the sick child. "Zara, you're very brave. We're going to get the others out." The Altarian girl grabbed Elena's hand with surprising strength. "Promise? My little brother is there. They took him because he can see through walls." "We promise," Marcus said firmly. Over the next several hours, they worked with desperate efficiency. Elena synthesized a temporary treatment for Zara, while extracting every detail she could remember. Marcus mapped the possible locations, cross-referencing power consumption with water reclamation proximity. Sarah quietly assembled a team of officers she knew she could trust. By dawn, they had a plan. The shadow place had to be in Section Zeta 9, a forgotten corner of the station that hadn't seen official traffic in years. The approach would be dangerous. Whoever ran this operation would have guards, surveillance, and potentially the ability to harm the children if threatened. "We go, in quiet," Sarah strategized. "Marcus, you'll cut their power, force them to switch to emergency lighting. That'll disable most of their security systems. Elena, you'll need to be ready with medical support. Some of these kids might be in critical condition." Elena nodded, checking her expanded field kit one more time. She'd added doses of anti-withdrawal, medication, neural stabilizers, and enough supplies to treat a dozen children for various species-specific conditions. "What about the administrator's office?" Marcus asked. "If someone there is involved." "I've sent an encrypted message to Colonial Authority," Sarah replied. "They're sending an investigation team, but they won't arrive for 3 days. We can't wait that long." Elena stood, feeling the weight of what they were about to do. "Then we do this ourselves. Those children have suffered enough." As they prepared to leave, Zara called out weakly from her bed. "The man in charge, he has strange eyes. One blue, one green, and he smells like burned metal." Elena memorized the description. Whoever was running this operation had made a critical mistake. They'd left a witness. And now, 3 humans who'd stumbled onto their secret were about to bring their entire network crashing down. The next few hours would determine the fate of dozens of children. Elena gripped her medical kit tighter, drawing strength from the determination she saw in Marcus and Sarah's faces. Humanity might be newcomers to the galactic community, but they'd brought with them an unstoppable drive to protect the innocent, and tonight, that drive would be tested like never before. The rescue mission. The maintenance tunnel outside Section Zeta 9 was pitch black, except for the thin beams from their helmet lights. Marcus led the way, his diagnostic scanner showing the electromagnetic anomalies growing stronger with each step. Behind him, Elena carried her medical kit while Sarah coordinated with her small team of trusted officers through subvocal communicators. Heat signatures ahead, whispered Officer Tanaka, a human who'd served with Sarah for 3 years. Looks like 2 guards, possibly Garathian based on the size. Marcus checked his station schematic. They were 50 meters from the abandoned storage facility. According to his calculations, the power junction he needed to access was just beyond the guards. I need 3 minutes at that junction box to cut their main power. We'll create a distraction, Sarah said. Tanaka, you and Reeves circle around to the south entrance, make some noise, draw them away. As the officers moved into position, Elena checked her medical scanner one more time. Marcus, I'm reading at least 15 life signs in there. Various species all showing signs of distress. We need to move fast. A loud clang echoed from the south corridor. Tanaka's distraction. The Garathian guards immediately moved to investigate, leaving the junction box unguarded. Marcus slipped forward, his fingers flying over his tools as he began rerouting power flows. 2 minutes, he whispered, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool tunnel air. Elena watched the corridor nervously. The facility ahead looked abandoned from the outside. Rusted doors, broken lighting, warning signs about radiation hazards that would keep casual explorers away. But her scanner showed the truth. Behind those doors was a fully operational holding facility. Got movement, Sarah warned. Someone's coming up from the lower level. Marcus worked faster, bypassing safety protocols with practiced ease. The station's power grid was like a living thing to him, each connection and circuit part of a greater whole. He found the isolated generator feeding the facility and began shutting it down, but something was wrong. They've got a backup system, he muttered. Independent power source, probably portable fusion. This'll only knock out their main systems. It'll have to be enough, Sarah said. We're out of time. Marcus made the final connection, and instantly, the lights in the facility flickered and died. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in a red glow. Alarms began blaring, not station alarms, but private ones installed by the traffickers. Go, 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 Sarah commanded. They burst through the entrance, weapons drawn. The first room was a makeshift command center, monitors showing cells filled with children. A human man with mismatched eyes, one blue, one green, stood at the console, his hand reaching for what looked like a dead man's switch. Don't move, Sarah ordered, her stun weapon aimed at his chest. The man smiled coldly. Lieutenant Kim, I wondered when you'd show up. Administrator Kellerman said you were getting too curious. Kellerman's involved? Sarah kept her weapon steady while processing this confirmation. Kellerman's a fool, the man replied. But a useful one. He thinks we're just smuggling contraband, has no idea what the real cargo is. Elena had moved to the monitors, her medical scanner analyzing the children visible on screen. They're all showing signs of neural suppression. If we don't get those collars off soon, you'll kill them if you try, the man interrupted. Those collars are bio-locked. Remove them incorrectly and the neural feedback will fry their brains. Only I have the release codes. Marcus stepped forward, his plasma cutter visible in his hand. Then you'd better start talking. Or what? You'll kill me? Then all those children die. The man's burned metal smell was stronger now, mixing with the ozone from damaged electronics. Besides, my employers are already on their way. A syndicate cruiser will be here in 6 hours. You think station security can stand against them? We'll see about that, Sarah said, but Marcus noticed her uncertainty. The syndicate was powerful, with resources that dwarfed anything the station could muster. A sound from the corridor made them all turn. The Garathian guards had returned, but before they could enter, they suddenly collapsed. Behind them stood Zara, the escaped Altarian child, her crystalline skin flickering as she phased back into solidity. I couldn't stay in the medical bay, she said weakly. Not while my brother's here. Elena rushed to her side. Zara, you're too weak. I can help, Zara insisted. She looked at the man with mismatched eyes. He keeps the codes in his head, but I can phase through and see them. My gift works on memories too. The man's confidence cracked. That's impossible. Altarians can't. You made us stronger, Zara said, approaching him slowly. Your drugs amplified our gifts, but you didn't think about what that meant. Before anyone could stop her, Zara placed her translucent hand on the man's head. He screamed, his body convulsing as the child literally reached into his mind. Seconds later, she pulled back holding a data chip that shouldn't have existed, a physical manifestation of digital memory. The codes, she gasped, collapsing into Elena's arms. Marcus grabbed the chip, plugging it into his scanner. Streams of data flowed across the screen. Not just release codes, but records of every child taken, every buyer lined up, every corrupt official who'd been paid to look the other way. This is evidence of everything, he breathed. The entire network. Sarah was already on her communicator. All units converge on Section Zeta 9. We have multiple children in need of immediate extraction. They moved deeper into the facility, the emergency lighting casting eerie shadows. The first cell they reached held 3 Tyrellian children, their scales dull with malnutrition. Elena worked quickly, using the codes to safely remove their collars while administering emergency nutrition supplements. The next cell contained the young Zalathi girl, Kira, along with 4 others of various species. Kira's eyes lit up when she saw Marcus. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you no one would hurt you." Marcus replied, carefully removing her collar. "We're getting everyone out." Room by room, they freed the children. Each one was a heartbreak. Young beings who'd been torn from their families, told they were dead to the world, forced to endure experiments to amplify their natural gifts. Elena worked tirelessly, treating injuries, administering antidotes, comforting traumatized children who'd forgotten what kindness looked like. In the last cell, they found Zara's brother, a tiny Altarian boy whose gift of sight had been pushed to dangerous extremes. He could see through walls, yes, but also through time, glimpses of possible futures that left him screaming in terror. "The ships!" he gasped as Elena removed his collar. "Black ships with red stars. They're coming. Not 6 hours now." Marcus checked his scanner and cursed. "He's right. I'm picking up FTL signatures at the edge of sensor range. 3 vessels, syndicate configuration." Sarah's face paled. "We need to evacuate the station." "No," Marcus said suddenly, an idea forming. "We need to make them think they've already won." He explained quickly. The trafficker's portable fusion generator was still operational. If he could overload it, create a controlled explosion, it would look like the facility had been destroyed, children and all. The syndicate would assume their operation had been compromised and terminated, making them less likely to retaliate. "But we'd need to evacuate all the children first without being seen," Elena pointed out. "The maintenance tunnels," Marcus said. "I can route us through sections that don't have surveillance. Make it look like we were never here." Sarah nodded. "Do it, Elena. Can the children travel?" Elena looked at the group of exhausted, traumatized young beings. Several could barely stand. "Not quickly. We'll need to carry some of them." Without hesitation, Marcus scooped up 2 of the smaller children. Sarah and her officers did the same. Even Zara, despite her weakness, helped support another child. They moved through the tunnels in a desperate procession, Marcus guiding them through, routes he'd memorized over years of maintenance work. Behind them, he'd set the fusion generator to overload in 20 minutes. Enough time to get clear, but not enough for anyone to stop it. "Why are you helping us?" one of the children asked. A young Vrizan whose ability to manipulate gravity had been twisted into something painful. "Because it's right," Elena answered simply. "Because no one should have to go through what you did." "But you're risking everything," the child persisted. Marcus adjusted his grip on the 2 children he carried. "Humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We're not going to do nothing." They just reached the medical bay when the explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared, but these were real station alarms now. The destruction of the facility had been detected. Administrator Kellerman's voice echoed through the speakers. "All residents remain calm. We've experienced a minor industrial accident in the abandoned sections. There is no danger." Sarah smiled, grimly. "He's trying to cover it up. Too bad I've already transmitted all the evidence to colonial authority." Over the next hour, Elena worked to stabilize all the children while Marcus and Sarah coordinated with arriving security forces. The syndicate ships, detecting the explosion and receiving no response from their contact, had changed course and fled. They thought their operation had been destroyed, taking all evidence with it. But in the medical bay, 15 children who were supposed to be dead were very much alive. Their testimonies about to bring down a network that spanned dozens of worlds. Zara's brother, his visions finally calm without the neural collar, looked up at Marcus with eyes that seemed far too old for his age. "I see futures," he said quietly. "In most of them, we died in that place, but you changed that. You changed everything." Marcus knelt beside him. "We just did what anyone should have done." "No," the boy insisted. "I've seen thousands of possibilities. In only a handful did anyone come for us. And in all of those futures, it was humans who came." Elena overheard and joined them. "Why humans?" The boy's crystalline skin shimmered. "Because you're young to the stars. You haven't learned to look away yet. You still believe you can make things better." As the medical bay filled with parents, who'd been told their children were dead as tears of joy replaced weeks of grief, Marcus realized the boy was right. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their adaptability. It was their stubborn refusal to accept that some things couldn't be changed. The children were safe, the network was exposed, and soon, those responsible would face justice. But Marcus knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of dark corners where the innocent suffered. And humans, it seemed, were just getting started with bringing light to those shadows. The reckoning, the coalition court on orbital station Sigma 7 had never seen anything like. Theresa representatives from 15 different worlds had arrived to witness the testimony, filling the gallery to capacity. Marcus Chen sat in the witness section, his maintenance uniform replaced with a formal civilian suit that made him uncomfortable. Beside him, Dr. Elena Vasquez reviewed her medical reports one final time, while Lieutenant Sarah Kim stood at attention in her dress uniform. 3 weeks had passed since the rescue. The children had been reunited with their families, their testimonies recorded, their medical needs addressed. The man with mismatched eyes, identified as Victor Hess, a former military interrogator turned criminal, sat in an isolation field, his burned metal smell contained behind the energy barrier. Beside him, Administrator Kellerman looked pale and sweaty, finally understanding the true nature of what he'd allowed to flourish on his station. The chief arbiter, an ancient Zilani whose crystalline form refracted light into rainbow patterns, called the court to order. "We are gathered to address crimes against sentient beings, specifically the trafficking and exploitation of minor individuals across multiple species. The evidence presented is substantial and disturbing." The prosecutor, a Tyrellian named Prosecutor Vex, stood. "Your Honor, we will demonstrate that the defendants operated a sophisticated network that kidnapped children with rare abilities, faked their deaths, and intended to sell them to the highest bidder. This network could not have functioned without corruption at the highest levels of station administration." Victor Hess's lawyer, a smooth-talking human from the core worlds, rose to object. "Your Honor, my client maintains that he was merely providing a service that certain families requested." "Your client's own records show otherwise," Prosecutor Vex interrupted, displaying the data Zara had extracted. 15 children, all reported dead, all found alive in his facility. The first witness called was young Zara. Despite Elena's concerns about trauma, the Altarian girl had insisted on testifying. She phased through the witness box's energy field, demonstrating her enhanced ability, and spoke clearly about her captivity. "They told us we were products," she said, her crystalline skin flickering with remembered distress. "They made us use our gifts until we collapsed. When we couldn't do more, they gave us drugs that burned our minds. My brother screamed every night from the visions they forced him to see." The gallery murmured with outrage. Several parents of the rescued children had to be restrained from charging at the defendants. Elena testified next, presenting medical evidence of systematic abuse. Every child showed signs of neural trauma from prolonged collar use. The compound they were injected with, X-47, is banned in coalition space because of its dangerous side effects. These children will require years of therapy to recover fully. Displayed brain scans on the court's holographic projectors. Look at these neural pathways. They've been artificially stimulated to the point of damage. Some of these children may never fully control their abilities again. Administrator Kellerman's lawyer tried to distance his client from the worst crimes. Administrator Kellerman believed he was facilitating legitimate private security operations. Sarah Kim's testimony destroyed that defense. I have here 37 reports filed by various station personnel about suspicious activities in Section Zeta 9. Each one was marked, reviewed, by Administrator Kellerman's office, and then buried. He knew something was wrong and chose to ignore, and she produced communication logs between Kellerman and Hess. 3 months ago, Kellerman personally reassigned patrol routes to avoid the abandoned sections. He received payments of 50,000 credits each time, listed as consultation fees in his financial records. Kellerman stood suddenly. I didn't know about the children. Hess said it was contraband, weapons maybe. I never thought. You never thought. Because you chose not to, the chief arbiter said coldly. Willful ignorance in a position of authority is not a defense. When Marcus took the stand, he spoke about the moment he'd found Kira, how something in her eyes had told him she was in danger. Where I come from on Earth, we have a saying. It takes a village to raise a child. Well, it should take a galaxy to protect them. Every one of us who sees something wrong and does nothing becomes complicit. The defense tried to paint him as a vigilante who'd endangered the station with his actions. You caused an explosion that could have breached the hull, Hess's lawyer accused. I caused a controlled overload in an isolated section after evacuating all personnel, Marcus corrected. I've been maintaining this station for 3 years. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I'd do it again. Even knowing you could face charges yourself, Marcus looked directly at Hess. Even if it cost me everything. Because those children's lives matter more than my career, my freedom, or my life. The most powerful testimony came from the children themselves. One by one, those who were able spoke about their experiences. A young Vrizon demonstrated how the collar had turned her gravity manipulation into a source of constant pain. A Tyrellian boy showed scars from where he'd been forced to channel electricity until his scales burned. Kira, the Zalathi girl who'd started it all, stood with quiet dignity and forgave the station residents who'd walked past her that night without helping. But I'll never forget the one human who stopped, she said, looking at Marcus, who saw me not as an alien child, but just as a child who needed help. The trial took 3 days. Evidence was presented showing the network extended to 12 different systems with buyers including illegal research facilities, private military companies, and wealthy collectors who wanted exotic pets with special abilities. The data Zara had extracted led to arrests on 7 different worlds. On the final day, the chief arbiter rendered judgment. Victor Hess, you are found guilty of trafficking in sentient beings, multiple counts of child endangerment, and crimes against sapience. You are sentenced to life imprisonment on the penal colony of Tartarus 9, with mandatory neural suppression to prevent you from ever harming another being. Hess showed no emotion as the sentence was read, but his mismatched eyes found Marcus, in the gallery, promising retribution that would never come. Administrator Kellerman, you are found guilty of criminal negligence, accepting bribes, and facilitating trafficking through willful ignorance. You are sentenced to 20 years imprisonment and permanent ban from any position of authority. Kellerman collapsed in his seat, finally understanding the weight of what his greed had allowed. After the trial, Marcus stood on the observation deck where this had all started. The station looked the same, bustling with life, dozens of species, mingling in relative harmony. But something had changed. Security patrols were more vigilant. The abandoned sections were being renovated and brought back online. A new child protection protocol had been implemented, requiring multiple confirmations for any minor traveling without verified guardians. Elena joined him at the railing. Colonial Authority offered me a position heading their new interspecies, Child Protection Division. They want someone with field experience, You taking it? Marcus asked. Already accepted. There are probably hundreds of operations like this throughout Coalition space. Someone needs to find them. She paused. They need engineers too. Specialists who understand station systems can spot anomalies. Marcus smiled. Is that a job offer? Sarah's. Already agreed to head the enforcement division, Elena said. The three of us made a good team. Before Marcus could respond, a small blue hand tugged at his sleeve. He looked down to find Kira, her violet hair now healthy and shining, her amber eyes bright with life. My mother wanted to thank you again, she said. But I wanted to ask you something. Marcus knelt to her level. What's that? Will you keep protecting children like me, even when it's dangerous? Marcus thought about his quiet life before all this, the simple satisfaction of maintaining machinery and keeping to himself. It had been safer, easier. But then he looked at Kira's hopeful face and thought about all the children still out there, waiting for someone to notice they were in danger. Yes, he said simply, for as long as I'm able. Kira hugged him, her small arms barely reaching around his neck. I knew you would. That's what humans do. You see problems and fix them. As the Zalathi girl ran back to her mother, Elena placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. She's right, you know. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't your technology or your adaptability. It's your inability to walk away from someone in need. Marcus stood looking out at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, more children were suffering, more predators were hunting, more corrupt officials were looking the other way. The task seemed overwhelming, impossible even. But then he remembered that night, 3 weeks ago, when he'd chosen to trust his instincts and save one small girl. That single decision had unraveled an entire network, saved 15 lives, and changed the station forever. One child at a time, he said quietly. One station at a time. One system at a time. Sarah's voice crackled over his communicator. Marcus, Elena, we've just received intelligence about suspicious activity on Trading Post Delta in the Kepler system. Similar patterns to what we saw here. Marcus and Elena exchanged glances. Their work was just beginning. On our way, Marcus replied, already moving toward the shuttle bay. As they walked through the station, Marcus noticed something different. People were paying attention. A Garathian security guard stopped to help a lost Altarian child find their parents. A human shopkeeper noticed a young Tyrellian who seemed distressed and asked if they were okay. The entire station had learned from what happened, had been reminded that protecting the vulnerable was everyone's responsibility. The shuttle to Trading Post Delta wouldn't leave for 6 hours. Marcus used the time to say goodbye to the children. They'd saved, each one recovering in their own way. Some would bear scars forever, but all would live to grow up, to pursue their dreams, to become whatever they chose to be. Zara's brother, the young Altarian whose visions had helped them understand the true scope of the threat, pulled Marcus aside. I see futures, he said quietly. And in the brightest ones, what you started here spreads. A network of protectors across the galaxy watching for those who prey on the innocent. Just doing what's right, Marcus replied. No, the boy said firmly. You're doing what's necessary, and that makes all the difference. As the shuttle departed, Sigma 7, Marcus watched the station shrink into the distance. He'd arrived there 3 years ago as a simple maintenance engineer, content to fix machines and keep to himself. He was leaving as something more. A protector, a guardian, part of something larger than himself. The galaxy was vast and full of darkness, but humans had brought something new to the cosmic community. An absolutely unreasonable refusal to accept that darkness as inevitable. They fixed things. They protected the weak. They stood up to bullies, even when the odds were against them, and sometimes, Marcus thought as he prepared for whatever awaited them at Trading Post Delta, that was enough to change everything. The rescued children of Sigma 7 would grow up free because 3 humans had refused to look away. Their abilities would develop naturally, their gifts becoming blessings rather than curses. They would tell their own children about the night when strangers risked everything to save them, and those children would tell their children. The story would spread across the galaxy, carried on 1,000 different tongues, adapted to 1,000 different cultures, but always with the same core message. Evil thrives when good beings do nothing, but it only takes one person standing up to change the course of history. Marcus Chen had been that person. And now, with Elena and Sarah beside him, he would continue to be that person for as many children as he could reach. The stars streaked past the shuttle's windows as they jumped to FTL, heading toward their next mission. Behind them, Orbital Station Sigma-7 continued its rotation, forever changed by one maintenance engineer who'd chosen to see what others had ignored. And ahead, the galaxy waited, full of children who needed someone to notice, someone to care, someone to stand between them and the darkness. Humanity had found its calling among the stars, not as conquerors or traitors or diplomats, but as protectors of those who couldn't protect themselves. It was, Marcus reflected, exactly what they were, meant to be.